Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone, welcome to my podcast. My name is Annisa Maghfiroh and I will bring you guys to explore issues that touch our shared humanity. Today, I'll bring you a crucial few points from a great thinker, Noam Chomsky, based on his lecture titled U.S.-Israeli Crimes Against Palestine. As citizen who stands firmly against injustice and occupation, we must understand Chomsky's striking thesis. This conflict is not just about Israel and Palestine. It is fundamentally an issue enabled and fully supported by the United States. Israel policies, he argues, are joint U.S.-Israeli policies. If we want to see a free Palestine, we must first challenge the role of Washington. Chomsky starts by observing how the world views Israel. He notes that internationally, support for these policies is constantly dropping. To explain why Israel can stand firm despite global condemnation, Chomsky uses a grim historical example: apartheid South Africa. 50 years ago, South Africa was disliked by almost every country. But South African leaders weren't worried. Why? Because they knew the United States position was the only one that truly mattered. The U.S. shielded them from global pressure. Chomsky says the relationship between the U.S. and Israel is the same. The U.S. acts as Israel's diplomatic shield. Since the 1970s, the world has agreed on a basic peace solution, a two-state solution on the pre-1967 borders. But this solution is always blocked. Why? Because the U.S. constantly uses its veto power at the UN to stop any resolution that criticizes Israel. Every occupation policy is quietly supported and funded by the U.S. This is truly painful for those of us who believe in global justice. Now, let's look closely at the specific evidence of actions that Chomsky identifies as illegal or criminal under international law. His point is that these actions are systematic and ongoing. The first one is the crime of settlements. Chomsky insists that the entire Israeli settlements enterprise is fundamentally illegal. Chomsky points out that the policy of transferring Israel's own civilian population into the occupied territory is a direct breach of Article 49 of the Fourth Geneva Convention. This is a serious violation of international law. He highlights that all settlements are illegal. He even notes that Israel's own legal counsel confirmed this fact shortly after the 1967 war, yet the policy continued. As a result, the constant illegal land appropriation fragments Palestinian territory, making the idea of the future Palestinian state almost impossible. The following points is the Gaza blockade and aggression. Chomsky critiques specific military operations, framing them as deliberate acts of aggression and collective punishment. He refers to Gaza as being, at the time, accurately described by Israeli human rights activists as the biggest prison in the world, totally encircled and under Israeli control. Chomsky specifically calls the invasion of Gaza, Operation Cast Lead, an act of aggression. He argues the stated pretext stopping rockets was misleading, and that the real goal was to crush any hope for diplomatic settlement. Lastly, the convergence policy. This is the most critical point for Chomsky, as it describes the long-term goal of the occupation. Chomsky argues the real policy being implemented is convergence, which is a euphemism to annexation and dismemberment. The policy involves building the separation wall into the West Bank, annexing valuable land, including crucial water resources, isolating the remaining Palestinian population into small, disconnected and economically unviable cantons, what it calls bantustans, and confining them. Chomsky emphasized these actions are sustained because they are actively shielded by the U.S. veto and military support, making them joint U.S.-Israeli crimes against the international consensus and the Palestinian people. Chomsky's analysis is vital. It forces us to stop pointing fingers only at the two parties in conflict. We must realize the main issue comes from the global power that shields one side. As citizens who deeply value justice and independence, the role of the U.S. hurts our sense of right and wrong. How can a major global power continue to provide a shield for policies that violate international law and deny fundamental human rights? Chomsky is right. The U.S. is not a veiled mediator. It is an active player that allows the strategy to continue. Change must begin where the support originates. So, if the U.S. is the key, what must we do? Chomsky says we must look at the history of successful movement against apartheid in South Africa. What worked then? Grassroots movements, public education, and divestment, pushing companies and institutions to stop investing in the oppressive regime. This is the call to action for all of us. We must educate ourselves, demand global accountability, and support movements that call for the U.S. to stop military aid that helps extend the occupation. History proves this. Change does come from political elites, but the voices of ordinary people who organize and demand the truth need to be still on the track. It must start with the awareness of us all. I think that sums up our podcast today. That was a powerful message by Noam Chomsky. May this ignite our spirit to stand up for justice. Thank you for listening to my podcast, and wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.